The cinematic tapestry of the Marvel Cinematic Universe changed forever. The exact moment a teenage kid from Queen's Thief caught Captain America's shield in the middle of a Leipzig airport. We watched a boy burdened with cosmic expectations try to balance geometry homework with saving the neighborhood, running on the sheer adrenaline of validation from Tony Stark. But looking back at the long, fractured road Tom Holland's Peter Parker has walked, it becomes painfully clear that his story was never a lighthearted high school comedy. It was a prolonged, beautifully tragic origin story that stripped away everything he loved until nothing remained but the red and blue suit. As we stand on the precipice of a completely blank slate for our favorite web slinger entering the era known as a brand new day, we need to look back. We must dissect every scar, every mistake, and every heartbreak that brought Peter to this absolute ground zero so that when the next chapter unfolds, we feel the weight of every single emotion exactly as he does. To understand the unique architecture of this Spider-Man, we have to journey back to the chaotic cinematic landscape of his introduction in Captain America: Civil War. The global audience was still actively nursing the emotional wounds of the abrupt end to Andrew Garfield's franchise, left holding the broken pieces of an unfinished narrative. Suddenly, Marvel Studios and Sony struck an unprecedented deal, bringing a fresh-faced, younger iteration into Earth 616. The storytellers made a critical, highly deliberate decision that altered the pacing of his mythos entirely. They completely bypassed the traditional spider bite and the devastating demise of Uncle Ben. We didn't need to witness the radioactive spider sinks its fangs into his flesh or watch a dying old man on a cold sidewalk for the third time in 2 decades. Instead, we were dropped directly into the mundane reality of Peter's ordinary life 6 months into his career as a vigilante. He was just a kid walking home from a regular day at school, carrying a backpack full of textbooks, completely unaware that his life was about to pivot on its axis. When Peter opens his apartment door, he doesn't find his Aunt May alone. He finds the billionaire icon Tony Stark sitting on the couch, casually eating walnut loaf. This encounter immediately set the tone for this version of the character, grounding him in a world already populated by gods and monsters. When Tony corners him in his bedroom, Peter tries to play off his activities, but Tony reveals footage of this mysterious webhead stopping speeding cars with his bare hands. Peter's explanation to Tony defines his core morality. He does what he does because when you can do the things he can, but you don't, and then the bad things happen, they happen because of you. It was a beautiful human paraphrase of the classic responsibility line, born from a deep, unspoken grief. Tony, deeply embroiled in the political nightmare of the Sokovia Accords, recognizes a pure, uncorrupted spirit and recruits him. Tony wanted enforcement, but more than that, he wanted to guide a prodigy, thrusting this 16-year-old kid directly into an ideological war between the world's greatest heroes. The battle on the German tarmac was Peter's trial by fire, a spectacular introduction where he held his own against veteran warriors like Falcon, the Winter Soldier, and a giant-sized Ant-Man. Armed with a brand new high-tech suit gifted by Stark, Peter moved with a joyous, talkative energy that felt ripped straight from the comic book pages. He wasn't just fighting, he was a starstruck fanboy, marveling at his opponent's weapons while simultaneously webbing them into submission. Tony watched this performance with a mixture of profound pride and intense anxiety, realizing the immense potential and dangerous vulnerability of the boy. When the dust finally settled on that fractured airport, Tony allowed Peter to keep the advanced suit as a token of entry into a larger world, setting up the central conflict of Spider-Man: Homecoming. This wasn't just about fighting crime anymore. It was about a young boy desperately seeking a father figure's approval in a world that felt too big for him to handle. Returning to Queens after tasting the grandeur of an Avengers conflict proved to be an excruciating exercise in patience for Peter. Tony Stark treated him like an unpredictable child, telling him to stay grounded, avoid the dangers he himself faced, and simply act as a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. When Peter eagerly inquired if his performance earned him a permanent spot as an Avenger, Tony gave him a firm, definitive rejection, telling him to leave the heavy lifting to the adults. So, Peter went back to his dual existence, navigating the stressful social hierarchies of Midtown High School alongside his brilliant best friend Ned and his quiet, observant classmate Michelle. He spent his afternoons running across rooftops, stopping bike thieves, and helping elderly citizens find their way around the city. Yet, every single evening ended with Peter sending exhaustive, desperate progress reports to Tony's trusted assistant, Happy Hogan, trying to prove he was ready for the next call into action. The quiet of the neighborhood shattered when Peter stumbled upon a routine ATM robbery that escalated into a devastating display of cosmic firepower. A group of thieves was using incredibly advanced, glowing weapons capable of tearing concrete walls apart like wet tissue paper. These weren't standard street firearms. They were reconstructed remnants of Chitauri alien technology left behind during Loki's devastating invasion of New York years prior. The cleanup of that historical disaster had been handed to Damage Control, a joint venture involving Tony Stark, which inadvertently ruined the livelihood of a blue-collar contractor named Adrian Toombs. Ruined and desperate to provide for his family, Toombs turned to a life of high-stakes crime, salvage smuggling alien debris and weaponizing it for the black market. This operation laid the criminal underworld foundations of the MCU, subtly introducing threads that connected to figures like Shocker, Prowler, and the sinister Scorpion. As Peter dug deeper into this dangerous black market ring, his secret identity accidentally leaked to his best friend Ned, who caught Peter crawling on the ceiling in full costume. Rather than creating a rift, Ned instantly became Peter's enthusiastic tech partner, helping him hack the structural safety limiters on the Stark suit, unlocking its full, unmonitored potential. Peter's pursuit of Toombs, now operating as the flying, mechanical winged vulture, led to a disastrous confrontation on a Washington, D.C. trip where Peter barely saved his classmates from an exploding Chitauri power cell. Soon after, Peter tracked a massive arms deal to a Staten Island ferry, believing he could single-handedly dismantle Toombs' entire operation. The resulting battle went horribly wrong as an unstable alien weapon split the massive passenger ferry completely down the middle, threatening the lives of hundreds of innocent people. Peter tried desperately to hold the giant ship together with mere webbing and raw muscle, but his strength wasn't enough. Iron Man arrived just in time to weld the ferry back together, preventing a massive tragedy but completely fracturing his relationship with Peter. In the quiet, tense aftermath on a nearby rooftop, a furious Tony Stark confronted a humbled, defensive Peter. When Peter argued that he was only trying to be like Tony, Stark delivered a crushing blow, stating that if Peter died, he felt that responsibility would be on his own hands. Tony demanded the high-tech suit back, leading Peter to cry out that he was nothing without the suit. Tony's response was a defining lesson in heroism. If you are nothing without the suit, then you shouldn't have it. Stripped of his armor, his gadgets, and his connection to the billionaire Avenger, Peter was forced to look in the mirror. He was once again just a regular boy from Queens, left with nothing but his old, homemade cloth costume and his own internal moral compass. Determined to mend his broken life, Peter stepped away from the superhero persona and tried to embrace the simple joys of being a teenager. He finally built up the courage to ask his longtime crush, Liz, to the high school homecoming dance, an invitation she happily accepted. The narrative delivered a spectacular, heart-stopping twist when Peter arrived at Liz's house in a suit, only for the front door to open, revealing that her father was Adrian Toomes. The subsequent car ride to the dance remains one of the most suspenseful sequences in the entire franchise, a quiet psychological battle in a confined space. Toomes slowly pieced together Peter's nervous demeanor, his voice, and his sudden disappearances, realizing this high school boy was the Spider-Man who had been sabotaging his business. Toomes delivered a chilling, cold ultimatum in the dark parking lot. Step away, enjoy the night with his daughter, or face the total destruction of everyone he held dear. Peter stood at a brutal crossroads, looking through the windows at a normal, happy life, but his sense of responsibility refused to let him walk away. Leaving a heartbroken Liz on the dance floor, he donned his crude, homemade sweatpants suit and ran out into the night to stop Vulture from hijacking a plane carrying Stark weapons. The confrontation at Toomes' warehouse lair went south instantly, as Vulture used his remote wings to destroy the structural pillars of the building, burying Peter under tons of concrete. Trapped in the pitch-black rubble, crushed by the literal and figurative weight of the world, Peter cried out for help, realizing no one was coming to save him. Seeing his reflection in a puddle of water, half masked by his homemade goggles, he remembered Tony's words and realized his power didn't come from technology. With a primal scream of pure determination, he used his own raw, unyielding strength to lift the entire building off his back, ascending into his true identity as a hero. Peter defeated the Vulture on a burning beach, saving Toomes' life from his own malfunctioning equipment and leaving him webbed up for the authorities. The fallout was bittersweet. Liz and her mother moved away to start a new life, and Michelle casually revealed to Peter that her friends called her MJ, dropping a beautiful anchor for his romantic future. Impressed by Peter's immense growth, Tony Stark brought him to the new Avengers headquarters, offering him a breathtaking, gold-accented Iron Spider suit and a formal introduction to the global press as the newest Avenger. Showing profound maturity, Peter turned it down, choosing to remain a neighborhood defender for just a little longer. Tony respected the choice, returning his classic Stark suit, but as Peter put it on in his bedroom, the film closed on a comedic yet earth-shattering moment. Aunt May stood in the doorway, catching him red-handed, screaming out in utter shock. The narrative jumped forward 2 years, plunging Peter into the cosmic catastrophe of Avengers: Infinity War, as Thanos made his terrifying descent toward Earth. When a massive, ring-shaped alien vessel hovered over Manhattan, Peter's spider sense flared violently, forcing him to leap out of a school bus window and charge straight into the heart of a cosmic war zone. He fought alongside Iron Man and Doctor Strange, eventually hitching a ride on the exterior of the ascending spaceship as it breached the upper atmosphere. Gasping for air in the thinning oxygen, Peter was saved when Tony deployed the advanced Iron Spider suit, which locked around him like a protective cocoon. This act of salvation sealed his fate, pulling him millions of miles away from home to the desolate, ruined planet of Titan. There, alongside a ragtag group of cosmic guardians, Peter fought with incredible bravery against the mad Titan himself, executing flawless, coordinated strikes. The battle for the universe ended in absolute disaster, leading to the devastating moment where Thanos snapped his fingers, wiping out half of all living things. On the dusty ground of Titan, Peter felt the cosmic dissolution approaching through his heightened senses before anyone else, staggering toward Tony Stark, weeping that he didn't feel good. He collapsed into his mentor's arms, repeating how desperately he didn't want to go, apologizing for failing, before dissolving into a cloud of silent, gray ash. 5 agonizing years passed for the survivors before the remaining Avengers executed the time heist, bringing Peter and the rest of the Fallen back to life in Avengers Endgame. Peter charged into the final battle with immense ferocity, but the victory came at the ultimate heartbreaking cost. He had to watch his surrogate father, Tony Stark, make the final sacrifice, holding Tony's hand as the light faded from his eyes, leaving an irreplaceable void in Peter's young soul. The profound grief of losing Tony heavy on his shoulders, Peter returned to a changed world, trying to find solace in a school trip to Europe during Spider-Man Far From Home. His goals were profoundly simple. He wanted to leave the heavy mask at home, travel across beautiful historic cities, and find the perfect romantic moment to confess his deep feelings to MJ. But the ghost of Iron Man haunted him at every turn, with murals of Tony covering walls across Europe and the entire world asking if Spider-Man would step up as the next leader of the Avengers. The weight of that expectation became unbearable when massive, destructive, elemental monsters began emerging from the ground, accompanied by an enigmatic new hero named Quentin Beck, whom the public quickly dubbed Mysterio. Beck claimed to be a warrior from an alternate dimension within the multiverse, a tragic survivor whose entire homeworld had been eradicated by these elemental forces. Nick Fury tracked Peter down in Venice, handing him a parting gift from Tony Stark, a sleek pair of glasses housing Edith, an incredibly powerful AI system with total access to Stark Industries' orbital weapon satellites. Peter, feeling completely overwhelmed by the crushing pressure of Tony's legacy and desperate to just be a normal teenager, found comfort in Quentin Beck's charismatic older brother demeanor. Beck listened to Peter's doubts, validated his fears, and acted like the seasoned hero Peter thought he desperately needed to guide him. Convinced that he was making the responsible choice for the safety of the world, Peter handed over total operational control of the Edith system to Beck, believing the world deserved a mature, brilliant hero like Mysterio rather than a confused teenager from Queens. This decision proved to be a catastrophic error in judgment, born from Peter's desperate vulnerability and longing for parental guidance. Quentin Beck was never a hero from another dimension. He was a bitter, highly disgruntled former Stark Industries holographic specialist whom Tony had fired years prior. Beck had assembled a massive team of dismissed angry ex-Stark employees to construct a massive lie using ultra-advanced combat drones and cutting-edge holographic projections to fake global threats. While Beck celebrated his stolen absolute power, Peter was in Prague, where MJ confronted him with a stray piece of debris she picked up during a battle. The debris accidentally activated, projecting a fragment of Mysterio's elemental illusion, instantly exposing the entire fraudulent operation to both of them, while MJ casually confirmed she had known his secret identity for a long time. Peter rushed to Berlin to warn Nick Fury about Beck's massive deception, only to walk directly into a horrifying, mind-bending trap designed by Mysterio. Beck used his terrifying illusion technology to subject Peter to a psychological nightmare, forcing him to witness a zombie-like Iron Man clawing its way out of a grave and trapping him in a labyrinth of shattering mirrors. Lost in the distorted reality, Peter accidentally blurted out that MJ and Ned also knew the truth, giving Beck new targets to eliminate before a speeding train struck Peter, leaving him broken and unconscious. He woke up in a jail cell in the Netherlands, bruised and emotionally shattered, calling Happy Hogan for a desperate rescue. On board a Stark jet, Happy comforted the weeping boy, reminding him that Tony wasn't perfect, but Tony chose Peter because he believed in the boy's pure, unyielding heart. Using a fabricator on the jet to design a brand new black and red suit, Peter flew directly into London, where Mysterio was staging a massive apocalyptic elemental attack to kill his friends and cement his legacy. Trusting completely in his spider sense, which Happy affectionately dubbed his Peter Tingle Peter, leaped blindly into the heart of a massive holographic storm. He fought his way through hundreds of invisible, lethal drones, navigating the blinding illusions by closing his eyes and listening to the vibrations of the air around him. He breached the central control room, shutting down the drones and causing a panicked Beck to accidentally get struck by stray gunfire from his own automated weapons. As Beck lay dying on the floor, he tried one final deceptive illusion to shoot Peter in the back, but Peter caught his hand without looking, letting the broken villain slip away into darkness. Peter returned to New York, finally sharing a beautiful, romantic kiss with MJ on a broken bridge, believing the nightmare was finally over and he could enjoy his new relationship. But Quentin Beck's true malice extended far beyond his death, as a doctored, heavily manipulated video was broadcast to the entire world by J. Jonah Jameson on the Daily Bugle. The altered footage framed Spider-Man as a ruthless killer who executed Mysterio, but the true devastation came at the very end of the broadcast. Beck's voice rang out, revealing Peter Parker's secret identity to the global public, accompanied by a giant photograph of his face. In an instant, the fragile wall between his dangerous superhero life and his innocent personal life was completely obliterated, throwing his entire world into total chaos as Spider-Man: No Way Home began. The fallout of the unmasking was immediate, violent, and utterly suffocating for the young teenager. The FBI interrogated Peter, Aunt May, Ned, and MJ while news helicopters hovered constantly over their apartment, turning their private lives into a non-stop public reality show. The true heartbreak manifested when college acceptance letters arrived, and Peter watched both MJ and Ned get rejected from MIT solely due to their controversial association with Spider-Man. Unable to bear the guilt of ruining his best friend's futures, Peter went to the Sanctum Sanctorum to seek the help of Doctor Strange, asking for a mystical spell to make the entire world forget his identity. Strange agreed to cast the runes of Kafkol, but as the dangerous magic swirled around them, a panicked Peter began interrupting the spell repeatedly, demanding exceptions so MJ, Ned, Aunt May, and Happy would retain their memories. The repeated unstable alterations caused the delicate spell to fracture, tearing open the fragile barriers of the multiverse and pulling in individuals from alternate realities who knew Peter Parker was Spider-Man. This narrative choice brought iconic cinematic history crashing into Peter's world, introducing dangerous villains like Dr. Octopus, Green Goblin, Electro, Sandman, and the Lizard from past film franchises. Alongside these threats came a miraculous occurrence: the arrival of two alternate versions of Peter Parker played by Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. Doctor Strange managed to trap the multiversal villains, intending to use an ancient artifact to send them back to their respective universes to face their original fatal destinies. But Peter, driven by an unyielding sense of empathy, refused to condemn these broken men to death, stealing the artifact from Strange and trapping the sorcerer in the mirror dimension. Peter brought the displaced villains to Happy's apartment, utilizing Stark technology to construct cures for their unique biological and psychological afflictions, successfully restoring Dr. Octopus's sanity. But the deep, dark madness of Norman Osborn's Green Goblin persona reasserted control, manipulating the other villains into turning against Peter in an explosive battle. The conflict culminated in a brutal, heartbreaking tragedy as the Goblin flew his glider directly through the apartment building, causing a devastating explosion. Aunt May survived the initial impact, standing amidst the burning ruins to deliver a final, definitive lesson to her bleeding nephew, reminding him that with great power, there must also come great responsibility. Minutes later, her internal injuries overcame her, and she collapsed, passing away in Peter's arms while he wept, helpless against the cruel reality of his choices. The loss of Aunt May shattered Peter, driving him to the dark edge of despair. But he was found by the two alternate Peter Parkers, who shared their own profound experiences with grief and loss. They explained how the deaths of their Uncle Ben and Gwen Stacy had nearly consumed them with rage, helping our Peter realize that giving up his morality would destroy the very legacy May died to protect. The three Spider-Men formed an incredible brotherhood, working together in a laboratory to complete the cures for every single remaining villain. They staged their final stand at the Statue of Liberty, executing a breathtaking, coordinated battle where they systematically cured Sandman, the Lizard, and Electro. When the Green Goblin arrived, our Peter fought him with a terrifying, unbridled fury, beating Osborn to the ground and picking up the heavy glider, fully intending to drive it through his chest to exact revenge. Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man stepped in front of the glider, silently catching the weapon and using his own body to stop Peter from committing an act of cold-blooded murder that would stain his soul forever. Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man threw Peter the cure, allowing him to inject Norman Osborn, finally freeing the old man from the agonizing grip of the Goblin persona forever. But the victory was short-lived. The broken containment box could no longer hold back the fractured spell, and the sky began to rip open, revealing countless glowing silhouettes of multiversal entities about to break through. Realizing the universe was on the verge of complete collapse, Peter made the ultimate, agonizing sacrifice, telling Doctor Strange to cast a final, completely uncorrupted spell. He instructed Strange to make everyone forget who Peter Parker was entirely, erasing his very existence from the collective memory of the universe to save reality. Peter ran down to say a final tearful goodbye to MJ and Ned, showing them the physical scar on MJ's forehead and promising with absolute certainty that he would find them, tell them everything, and rebuild their bond. The spell washed over the cosmos in a wave of glowing blue light, repairing the multiverse and sending the alternate heroes and cured villains safely back to their proper timelines. Days later, Peter walked into the quiet donut shop where MJ worked, holding a piece of paper with a carefully prepared speech to jog her memory. But as he stood before her, he watched her interact happily with Ned, discussing their upcoming trip to MIT, completely free of the danger, chaos, and pain that his presence always brought into their lives. He noticed the faint scar on her head, looked into her completely blank, polite eyes, and chose to stay silent, slipping the paper back into his pocket and walking away alone. This brings us to the profound, quiet tragedy of his current reality as we look toward his next chapter, Brand New Day. Peter Parker is now completely alone in a cold, indifferent world, living in a tiny, depressing apartment with nothing but a police scanner, a sewing machine, and a threadbare mattress. He has no Stark technology, no advanced artificial intelligence, no multi-billion-dollar satellites, no Avengers contacts, and absolutely no family or friends who recognize his face or remember his name. He has been completely erased from the history books of his own life, forced to study for a high school equivalency diploma in the lonely quiet of the night. Yet, as the final moments of his journey showed him stitching together a vibrant, classic red and blue suit by hand and leaping out into the snowy New York night, we see that the true hero was never the suit or the legacy, it was the boy inside. He has lost everything, but he has finally become the pure, unadulterated Spider-Man he was always meant to be, and his new dawn is going to be unforgettable. Thank you so much for watching this video all the way to the end and exploring this deep, emotional journey with me. If you enjoyed this cinematic breakdown and want to stay updated on everything happening in the superhero universe, please make sure to like this video, share it with your fellow movie lovers, and subscribe to the channel. I want to hear all your thoughts, theories, and questions about what lies ahead for Peter Parker, so drop them down in the comments section below. This has been your host, Liam Harrison from MovieCast, thanking you for staying connected throughout the video, and I will see you all in the next breakdown.